Okay, so let's be real. We're all kind of drowning in crypto hype, right? But what if I told you the real revolution, the thing that's going to change everything, isn't about the coins themselves? It's about connecting these isolated digital worlds to build a smarter, more connected, and maybe even a greener future. And it all kicked off with this one core idea, right from the original Bitcoin white paper. The goal wasn't just to make some new kind of digital cash. No, it was way bigger than that. It was about building a system based on cryptographic proof instead of trust. That one line, that was the spark that ignited this whole digital revolution. So let's dive into what that revolution actually promised. It was about building an entirely new digital foundation, changing the very rules of how we exchange value and information. At the heart of this promise is something called distributed ledger technology, or DLT. It's basically the engine behind blockchain, and it's a total game changer for a few key reasons. First, it's super resilient because the data isn't just in one place. It's spread out across tons of computers. It's also secure by design, which means it's incredibly hard to tamper with. And finally, you get this crazy level of transparency because everyone is looking at the same shared, unchangeable record of what happened. To really get a grip on how big this is, just think back to the early days of the internet. It wasn't the internet, right? It was just a bunch of separate, lonely computer networks that couldn't talk to each other. Then along came a protocol called TCP/IP, and boom, suddenly they could all communicate, creating this single, open internet we can't live without today. Well, that's exactly where we are with blockchain right now, on the verge of a very similar breakthrough. But, and this is a big but, there's a huge problem. This whole revolution is happening in these little isolated pockets, in silos. It's like building these amazing futuristic high-speed trains that just stop dead at the border. They can't connect with the tracks on the other side. A total disconnect. So what is the one single thing that's holding all of this incredible potential back? And here's the problem in a nutshell. Most blockchains simply can't talk to each other. They're like they're speaking completely different languages. And this isn't some accident. They were all built with different goals in mind. Some wanted to be super fast, others were all about being rock-solid secure, and that led to totally different rules and protocols. It really is like that train track analogy. One country uses a wide track, the other uses a narrow one. The trains themselves are incredible, but they're useless if they can't cross that border and work together. And that brings us to the key word for today, interoperability. It's just a fancy word for the ability of all these different networks to finally talk to each other, to exchange information. Without it, you have this great digital disconnect, a bunch of powerful but lonely islands that can't collaborate. And that, right there, is the major roadblock holding everything back. But here's the good news. The story doesn't end there. Innovators are already building the digital bridges to fix this very problem. They're connecting these isolated islands into what could become one single, seamless digital continent. And the key to making all of this work is something called a trustless exchange. Now, that sounds complicated, but all it means is you can swap assets between two totally different networks securely without needing a bank or some other middleman. And the magic behind it is a clever tool called hashed time-locked contracts, or HTLCs for short. Let's walk through how one of these atomic swaps actually works. So imagine Alice wants to trade with Bob, but they're on two different blockchains. First, Alice locks her asset up in a smart contract on her side. Step 2. Bob sees that it's locked and secure, so he feels safe locking up his asset on his blockchain. And then, and this is the cool part, both of them provide a kind of cryptographic proof, and the assets are swapped automatically and at the exact same time. It's an all-or-nothing deal, which means there's no way for one person to run off with the other stuff. Pretty neat, right? Okay, so now that we know how to build these bridges, the real question is, what can we actually do with this connected ecosystem? The possibilities are endless, but one of the most exciting, and maybe surprising, applications is in tackling climate change. Just take a look at this. In China, there's this app called Ant Forest. It basically turns sustainability into a game, letting people earn green energy points for making low-carbon choices. Those points then went towards planting real trees. And the result? According to a UN report, this one app helped avoid over 2 million tons of carbon emissions. That's a massive, powerful example of what happens when you connect digital finance with real-world climate action. And it's not just a one-off thing. These applications are popping up everywhere. In Australia, a company called Power Ledger lets you sell the extra solar energy from your roof directly to your neighbors. Over in the Netherlands, One Planet Crowd lets you directly fund clean energy projects you believe in. And in India, an app called I Got Garbage is totally revolutionizing recycling. All of these are just amazing examples of what's possible when you connect people and capital to build a greener future. But wait a second, how can you actually trust any of this data? That's where something called verifiable credentials comes in. The easiest way to think about it is like a digital passport. So a legit green certification group can issue a digital stamp to a solar farm. The farm can then show that stamp to an investor who can instantly and cryptographically verify that it's real. It's how you make sure that a green investment is actually green. So the tech is there. We know how to connect these worlds. But building the technical bridges is really only half the battle. Now we're facing an even bigger challenge, writing the rulebook. We have to build the legal and regulatory frameworks to govern this whole new interconnected world. And this brings up some huge, thorny questions, right? I mean, if a transaction zips across 3 different blockchains in 3 different countries, whose laws even apply? In a system that's decentralized, who's on the hook when something goes wrong? How do we protect people's privacy and sort out disputes? The tech is moving at light speed, but our legal systems are, let's be honest, struggling to keep up. Regulators are starting to get their heads around this, though. They're using a pretty simple but powerful guiding principle. Same risks, same rules. Basically, instead of getting bogged down in what the technology is called, is it a token, is it a smart contract, they're focusing on what it does. So, if a new digital asset acts like a traditional security, well, it should be regulated like one. It's all about creating a level playing field and protecting consumers. And some places are already jumping ahead. Jurisdictions like Malta, they even call themselves Blockchain Island, along with Liechtenstein and Bermuda, they're actively building out clear legal frameworks. They're trying to create these environments that give innovators legal certainty while still managing the risks. And that's attracting businesses who want to build on this new frontier. So that leaves us with the final, and maybe the most critical question of all. We're figuring out how to connect the technology. We're building the digital bridges. The real test now is, can we connect our laws and our societies to keep up? Can we build the framework that unlocks this technology's incredible potential for a truly connected and hopefully a more sustainable future?